Introduction. Racial equity has been a passion of mine for as long as I can remember. It was a passion of my father and often discussed in our household while growing up. From the time I was a young girl, I remember family discussions centered on the root causes of inequities and how to overcome them. I now recognize many of these discussions as survival methods and success strategies unique to the Black community. I fondly remember my dad sitting me and my sisters down for one of his talks. These talks often lasted hours, extending late into the night. We sleepily listened while he told us stories passed down to him, oral accounts that had traveled through his family for generations. I have no doubt that this part of him came directly from his ancestors, the griots of Western Africa. My dad never went to Africa, but there are things in DNA that transcend space, time, and circumstances. He told us stories that his grandparents and other family members shared with him, things that happened during chattel slavery and other important events. He often discussed his experiences as a boy growing up in the segregated South and as a preacher's kid. Two stories that are particularly relevant to my family currently are about Blanche K. Bruce and Bruce's Beach. Blanche K. Bruce was one of the first Black senators in the United States in the 1870s. My family is currently researching to determine if he is one of our ancestors. Bruce's Beach is located in Manhattan Beach, California, and was once a prominent Black beachfront resort owned by our relatives, whose land was taken in the 1920s by the city. For many years, there has been an ongoing effort to pass legislation that will return the land back to the descendants of the Bruce family and hopefully provide restitution for the loss of revenue of nearly 100 years. Finally, on September 30th, 2021, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed Senate Bill 796 legislation that will enable the beachfront property to be returned to its rightful owners. Property seizure is not unique to our family. It happened to many Black families in this country. Hopefully, the return of Bruce's Beach will set a precedence for this nation to return other stolen property back to their Black owners. My dad also taught us many lessons about Black history, American history, politics, and more. He instilled pride in us, telling us that we would change the world, own companies, and work for ourselves, affirming our gifts and talents. He even talked about our future offices, how they would be decorated with pictures of our grandmothers. He was such a proud and brilliant man. His stories and lessons were detailed, frequently recalling dates and times with uncanny accuracy. I now wonder if he had a photographic memory. Often these stories would go on for hours, until my mom would yell, "James, let those girls go to bed," to our relief. At the time, I would grow weary of listening, but it was in those years of hearing all those stories and history lessons that my love for genealogy, Black history, American history, politics, and entrepreneurship was birthed. I later discovered that most of these interests and passions tend to be hereditary, a family trait. As I meet new family members, many of whom my dad never met, the interests and passions are unmistakably similar. Currently, I am researching my maternal family history. I know a lot about my grandparents and their upbringing in the segregated South, but I also want to learn more about their ancestors. My maternal grandfather, Sim Ray, is a local community leader who was awarded the key to the city in our hometown, as well as had the honor of a community center being named after him in 2022. I often wonder where his characteristics come from and look forward to learning more about his lineage. Family history is too important to not know and pass along. I encourage others to learn their family history as well. As a school-aged girl, I particularly loved Black History Month and learning about the Civil Rights Movement. My parents had a collection of ebony pictorial history of Black America volumes that I would study. I was fixated on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Coretta Scott King, and many others. At my church, I always participated in the annual Black History programs, coordinated by Deacon James Rowan, a community leader in my hometown. Although I always felt my passion for Black history and racial equity was a little strange to have growing up, I could not shake it. As I grew older, I took some courses about Africa and African American studies in college, but never knew how to turn this passion into a career in the business world. At that time, I was not interested in becoming a teacher. However, I never stopped researching and learning, reading books, watching documentaries, and studying on my own. Fast forward to 2018, I was introduced to equity work while briefly employed at a nonprofit organization whose mission is to eradicate racial disparities and inequities in early childhood. It was there that I was introduced to the targeted universalism, structural fairness models, and attended health equity and social justice workshops. Doing this work, I was finally able to make a connection on how to use my passion for racial equity in a business setting. In 2020, the killing of George Floyd and the presidential election led to another defining moment in my life. Given the current heightened racial climate in the United States, my desire to expand my work and knowledge on racial equity issues increased exponentially. I was very disturbed by the political and racist arguments that I saw on the news and social media, and I wanted to do something about it. I decided to create a series of flashcards for all communities, but particularly the Black community, on the intentional systems that have shaped the current reality for Black people in America. As I worked on the flashcards, I embarked on an amazing opportunity. My current employer selected me as one of their fellows to participate in a 2-year racial equity fellowship. The goal of this fellowship is to develop public policies and corporate engagement strategies that will address systemic racism by creating racial equity solutions. I began to learn much more information that I wanted to share, and my flashcards turned into this book. When I take time to reflect, I realize the biggest reason I wrote this book is for the young girls, like my younger self, who love Black history and politics and often wonder and ask important questions such as, how did Black people stop being enslaved? Why are Black citizens still being treated differently? Why are neighborhoods still segregated? I want them to know that their curiosity is not strange, but amazing. There are systemic facts that I believe young girls and everyone else should know. This book takes you on a 40-day journey from chattel slavery to the modern-day era, with many lessons highlighting some of the insurmountable odds Black people have faced in this country, while celebrating their shocking survival. Each of the 40 mini lessons represents 1 decade of enslaved Africans and their descendants being in America. This book intends to spark interest, educate, and inspire discussions about past systems that are currently shaping reality for Black people in America. Many of today's current political strategies are repeats of past tactics already used in America's history. We must educate all communities on how we got to this point and how the consequences of voter suppression and other actions created today's society. There is no way to fully capture over 400 years of Black history in only 40 lessons, but this book provides a comprehensive overview. My intention is to educate as many people as possible. I did the research, and this is my attempt to walk others through history from the Black perspective and to identify how key decisions are still impacting us today. I also want this book to serve as a broad history lesson, as I'm disturbed by many of the fragmented and misleading arguments and facts I see debated on television, social media, and other outlets. I understand the Black community is not a monolith. Many of the conclusions in this book represent my research and perspective, including my lived experiences and that of those in my network. There are clear links to past policies that have shaped the current realities for Black people. As a Black woman, there is no escaping this reality. It impacts my family, friends, and myself. Instead of complaining about these injustices, I chose to work to bring about solutions and change. I am compelled to do this work in honor of my ancestors and descendants. It is past time to educate ourselves and our children. I recommend reading 1 or 2 mini lessons a day, as there is a lot of information to absorb. This book is suitable for middle school aged readers and older. I hope that parents read these mini lessons with their children, teachers, with their students, and book clubs read it together. I also hope these mini lessons spark interest in particular topics, and that readers will be inspired to research further and learn more. Please note this book is about enslaved Africans and their descendants, and I refer to them by different names based on the language of the many lessons' respective time period. Also, I purposely use the term enslaved instead of slaves to show my respect and dignity for their lives. The system of slavery was something that happened to them and not who they are as a people. They were much more than slaves. This book is also my love story to Black Americans, those who were enslaved from Africa and their descendants. They endured unimaginable horrors. Many were intentionally planned throughout America's history for generations. Yet, they survived and their descendants are still present in America today, continuing to fight for equality. Their unlikely survival is something we should be aware of and also celebrate, an extreme source of pride. Black Americans are truly magical people with superhuman, magical blood running through their veins.